So next we have Tom Kravitz. Tom Kravitz is the town planner in North Smithfield, Rhode Island, a graduate of California University of Pennsylvania with a master's in community planning and landscape architecture from the University of Rhode Island. Kravitz was the director of planning in Burrillville, Rhode Island for many years until becoming the director of planning in North Smithfield in 2016. He was the first winner of the Daniel Barron Award for community planning in Rhode Island. So we are excited to hear from Tom today, and thank you again for leading our tours this evening.
Thank you. Thanks for everyone who was able to make the tour.
Yes, good tour. Yeah, great tour.
I found these slides. I figured I'd kick this off. I was doing some research on an old road, as I told you, all on the tour. And I came across some old records from the North Smithfield with the town council journaled records. And so you might ask, you probably saw the slide earlier about the blizzard of 1888. There was some interesting correlations and coincidences that happened in this town and around this time. My undergraduate degree is in meteorology. I have a liberal arts earth science background in my undergraduate, so I tend to correlate things with significant weather events, which is really the reason I did this. So I'll get to the point how it relates to North Smithfield in a second, but the for some reason my slides are not moving. Okay. So this is the extent of the storm. The source of this file is Cosin, who was a meteorologist who did a lot of analysis with jet stream dynamics. But you can see, for those of you who remember the blizzard of 78, there was supposedly 56 inches of snow in Woonsocket. This storm was much bigger. The light blue area is about a foot, the purple is 2 feet, the red is 3 feet, the yellow is 4 feet, and the green is close to 60 inches. So it was a massive storm over that period of time. It's interesting with this storm because it actually prompted changes in land use. It's the reason that the New York City put the subway system in. It's also the reason why they took all their electrification and put it underground as a result of that storm. So those are two major things that affected urban planning and land use. But the connection is really here. This is page 44. I think it's book 2. But if you look at the date, it's 1888, April 28th. So this is here in North Smithfield. So this is about a month and a half after that storm happened. It's probably still snow on the ground when it occurred. But at that meeting, as you can see here, I'll read it to you. Theodore Holman presented his petition praying that he might be granted permission to erect and use a windmill at the rear of his house in which he resides in Forestdale. That's right over here. And upon consideration thereof, it is decreed that said petition be granted for consideration, that said Theodore Holman holds the town harmless and assumes all responsibility for damages that may arise from the erection of the use of said windmill. And that's Byron Andrews, the town clerk. So who knew, right? Someone was petitioning the town for renewable energy, in this case a windmill, in 1888. It was just amazing, the stuff that was going on at the time. But I'll get to the point, and that is solar siting. Although I'd be remiss if I didn't mention, some of you may have seen in the news, we are dealing with a large windmill application similar to the ones that have happened down in Johnston. It's before the zoning board now. It's one turbine, but it's been stayed for several years while there was a court issue going on. That's been settled. Now they're coming back to the zoning board. So that's going on. We do have a wind project. We have solar projects. That's what these are. The green is proposed solar, and the yellow is the existing solar. So for those of you who were on the tour, we toured these two here, and then we came west on Pound Hill Road and stopped there. touched upon incentives. Why are towns being hit with so many solar projects? This is titled "Can Solar Thrive Without Incentives?" This was pretty recent. This was March of 19. Some of you probably seen these articles. But it talked about all the different incentives that are out there. From the federal investment tax credit, which is good through 2021. That's a 30% deduct of the total project cost from federal taxes. There's National Grid Renewable Energy Growth Program, and so on and so forth. There are others. OER, the Rhode Island Agricultural Energy Program, etc. Many of you, I'm sure, are more familiar with these. And if you're accountants, you really are watching this stuff. But this is interesting. I just put the megawatts and acreage of the sites together. So the first two we saw were 1 megawatt, 4.5 acre sites each. This is a big planned one, part of an overlay zone that is over the top of the existing zoning district. Our existing zoning for solar, caps solar at 6 acres or 30% of the lot area, whichever is less in size. So that's just generally keeping them at a 2.5 to 3 megawatt size facility. But it just so happens the first two that came to the town petitioned us sought zoning relief. And one of which was granted. That was this one here. That's a 6.4 megawatt, 40 acre site. That's a community solar project, so the town liked the fact that upwards of 2,500 homes could see a benefit on their utility bills directly from that system. So that achieved a zoning relief there. As I said, this is an overlay zone. This is a whole different ball of wax. It's really specific to this one site, which is being put forth by Green Energy. It's a 43 megawatt site, which is quite large. It's a 200 acre system. By way of incentive, the total annual tax revenue, if you add all of these up, the smaller ones, it's 11.5 megawatts or 57,500 if you look at the $5 per kilowatt hour taxation, the tangible rate. The large system here, they were talking about a tax treaty potentially to the town for $350,000 a year for 20 years, or $7 million. There are studies in this town that go back. This one's from 1990. Potential industrial sites. There were two big sites where the overlay is for the large system that they're putting in. Some of the rationale being used was we're always looking at this site in this town for potential industrial purposes. It's got good access to 146. The power line easements are on 3 sides in this area. Is perhaps solar a good temporary use for 25 years as a bridge use to get us to the point where the town's ready to maybe put it in an industrial park or an office park, for that matter. The only other area is right up here in the Branch River. This is where the first two are that we saw. So we were looking at, this is the office park I was telling you about. Here's the rail line. So this area is developed with CVS. This is likely supposed to be the next area in town we want to try to build the tax base. So maybe 30 or 40 years from now, maybe this is the next one. Again, this is that potential office park. So part of the reasoning was the town could potentially use the solar farm as that temporary bridge use to generate revenue, and maybe it sets the table a little bit for that site as a commercial use in future years. This is an interesting side. This is a water resource map from the comp plan. There are little red stars, particularly here and here, and some blue ones as well. And those are surplus sites. Surplus, and everyone wants to know what surplus means. Comprehensive environmental response, compensation, and liability information system. They're polluted sites, basically, is what I tell people. It's a description that's applied through EPA. Those are EPA surplus sites. So this is the other area that we viewed where the other solar farms would be taking place with King Solar, as I said, the community solar project. So they're in portions of town which there's already, the town one that we saw was a landfill. It's been regraded, so that's a good, a lot of people would agree that that's a good location for a site. There's also, historically, in terms of the land use, up in this peninsula, there's Holliston sand and gravel. They've been mining the overburden in that area on top of the water table and capitalizing on that. They're in the sand and gravel business. South of them, you have 2 surplus sites, or actually 4 if you look at these 2, and then the landfills. So no one can see this area. It is subject to some groundwater pollution. Maybe that's a good spot for solar. Frankly, it just kind of happened that way. It's not as if we were guiding solar to go in these places, but it kind of worked out in that regard. So that's a little bit about the location and the history of the land use. This is a sheet from the site plan of green development. This was submitted to the planning board. This project has master plan approval. It's 43.4 megawatts AC power. The project would have to come back to the planning board for a preliminary review along with its state permits, one of which it has to obtain is a declaratory judgment from the Energy Facility Siting Board because it's larger than 40 megawatts. So, to my knowledge, I think this is the first and only time the EFSB will be petitioned by a solar project because of its size. So I think they're going through that process now. But you can see it's very much color-coded into 9 different phases. And this is about a 4 megawatt size, just the red. The whole thing, like I said, is 43, and you can see the wetlands are in this area, and the wetlands come down in here. One of the things the planning board had asked for is if they could split this to the wetlands don't connect, but it's kind of screaming out for a very wide corridor that's perhaps several football fields long, wide. So, the larger deer population, things could maybe still at least travel that piece of it. So the planning board's trying to do the best it could with it. The town stands to gain revenue from it, but it's something that people are definitely concerned about, for sure.
What's the current land? Is it forested now?
This is currently forested. This is that area that I showed you with the industrial mapping, how the town had historically always looked at it to try to make it a future industrial park area someday. It really would only work as an industrial park if we could somehow, the interchange with Greenville Road is off 146 in the northwest. We could somehow create direct access that's one way into the site, one way out onto 146, perhaps at the old, it wasn't a way station per se, but it was where the trucks are pulled over. Perhaps as a way to work with Federal Highway to get one way in, one way out. This is years from now, if it was used as an office park. Forget the solar for now, but the thinking is to keep as much traffic as possible off of Iron Mine Hill Road, because Iron Mine Hill is rural, very windy, it's got vertical curves and horizontal, and it's just a road that's better handles rural residential traffic than commercial traffic. But if we could combine it to 146, maybe that would be the best thing. This actually is the website that I referenced where the town derives benefit from the power, that one facility we saw. This I just took today, and it was around, just before 1 o'clock. We could see it was sunny. And this is a website that the company set up for the town, so you can go on and see how the solar farm is generating power. This is a 5-day look, and this is interesting. This is the month.
Wow.
So if you go back, there's 27, 28, 29, 30. Yeah, people said it's been raining a lot, and it has been, because you can see it here, and especially in the beginning of May. This thing updates every 10 minutes. It's pretty interesting to look at. This is the year production. It started in December of 18, and it's ramping up as we get into summer. And again, this one, the town gets 1.2 megawatts of power, which writes down the utility bills for the school department and the town hall. And you already touched on this, but I had this in my PowerPoint because you guys had started off with talking about ecoRI, priority bills in favor, up in here. And then I just got an email from Scott Wolf, literally on Thursday, which said, wait a minute, oppose 0661, but it was the sub A apparently that came out that people were. My point of this was things are changing so quickly, right? I mean, it's like he's set an agenda in a workbook, and then all of a sudden bills get tossed in, and they're maybe not the ones that you like. Anyway, that's the presentation. I can try to answer any questions about the siting and whatnot.